All right, good evening, everybody. We will call the Belvedere City Council Committee of the Whole meeting of July 10th, 2023 to order. If the clerk will help me with the roll call, please.
Albertini,
Here.
Brereton,
Here.
Fleury,
Here.
Frank. Here. Freeman. Here. Gramkowski. Here. McGee.
Here.
Mulhall.
Here.
Porter. Porter is absent. Snow.
Here.
9 present.
Okay, and do we have anybody registered?
We do not.
All right, we have no public comment, no public forum this evening, reports of officers, boards, and special committees. I know that Ms. Hanson had some questions regarding sickage surveys that were sent out. Ms. Hanson?
Thank you. As you know, part of their annual audit is this fraud risk assessment survey. If you have a copy at your desk, as of last Friday, their records show you have not returned it. So if you could complete it and return it as quickly as possible, that would be great. If it turns out you did turn it in and their records aren't accurate, please let me know and I will remind them that you have done that. But if you can return it as quickly as possible, that would be great.
Quick.
Okay, Alderman Snow?
And I had turned in mine a week, and then a week later, I got a notice that the second one telling me it was missing. And, yeah, and to be quite frank, just as long as we're here, I think it's the stupidest question at the end, have you committed fraud? So I usually put some kind of remark on that, but.
Alderman Snow's kind of funny because the department has the same questions. And of course, I looked at him and said, that's a stupid. Has anybody ever actually answered yes? And apparently they have.
Okay, and the D-Day on that was the 15th, June 15th?
It was June 15th. So yeah, if you could just turn it in, and I highlighted where you could send it back to, where you can email it back to if you want to. But yeah, if you can just do that as quickly as possible, because we just don't want to throw off the process and they're getting back to us with their findings.
Okay. All righty. Appreciate that, everybody that's here, and we'll talk with Alderman Porter as well. So, thank you, Ms. Hanson. Item 1, building, planning, zoning, unfinished business. We have none. Item 2, building, planning, zoning, new business. Mr. Countryman?
Thank you, Mayor. For the month of June, the department issued 134 permits for a value of construction just over $3 million. I'm sorry. 16 of those were commercial, 118 were residential, 4 new houses. Some commercial permits of note was the expansion of the online food order pickup at Walmart, the Kunis expansion. The dispensary is trying to get a final this week, so they're busy out there. Met with the property on Pearl for the daycare facility. Staff met with Yukon in regards to the schedule for the construction under that project. Midwest Refrigeration is wrapping up. They're getting ready to close that one out. General Mills is pouring a ton of concrete for the fire loop and the floor at this time. And that's all I have. I'll open any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Countryman? Okay, I saw the concrete trucks in and out today, so, yep. All right, thank you, Kip. Appreciate that. Moving on, Planning Zoning Department update. Ms. Delrose?
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, there was one case in June. It was for the car wash by Walmart. There are no cases or public hearings in July. Project Yukon, as Kip said, has been occupying our time. Historic Preservation reviewed the downtown facade grant applications and gave their opinion. That's in the spreadsheet that you guys got in your packets. They're continuing to discuss their fundraisers as well. Obviously, Heritage Days took place. It went pretty well. It was a little on the hot side, but all in all, it was a good event. Working on the comp plan, they will be here, the consultants will be here the 24th to give a presentation. And then that is the biggest things from the department for June.
Okay, any questions for Gina? Or comments? Okay. I would like to thank you, Gina, for all the hard work that you put into Heritage Days. I think sometimes we take for granted that it just takes place and it magically happens. Yes, magically happens, but I know there's a lot of work involved with it, and you do an awful lot of work. And I want to thank also Alderwoman Mohal was on the city float. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And any of the other aldermen, I know Alderwoman Frank was there, and I appreciate that. Alderman McGee, saw you as well. Alderman Snow, I did run into you on the corner. I think you were in your lawn chair.
Yeah, just one.
Just walking, okay. All right, anyhow, so thank you for that, and Ms. Hanson, Shannon helped us out with the float, and Erica as well, and I would be remiss not to mention Abby. Abby does a lot of things, wears a lot of different hats, but at Heritage Days, she helps coordinate a lot of the events along with Gina. So greatly appreciate that. Thank you. All right, if there are no other questions for Gina or comments, we'll just move on here. Item C, in your packet here, you have a memo from me regarding the appointment of a request for Carl Ganevu to serve as chairman of the Belvedere Planning and Zoning Commission. If I could get a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Fleury. Thank you. Any questions, any comments? Carl's been, in the past, he's been the chairman, and he was, I believe, he wasn't there, so he was successfully elected again. So congratulations to Carl if you're listening. And any other questions regarding that? He does a fine job. So, all right, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion and consent to approve the appointment of Carl Ganevu to serve as the chairperson of the Belvedere Planning and Zoning Commission for a one-year term ending May 2024. Please say aye. Aye. If there's any opposed. Okay, motion passed. Thank you. And item D, we have the Downtown Facade Improvement Grant Program. So Gina, I'm probably ask you to start.
So in this year's budget, there was $26,462 allocated for the Downtown Facade Improvement Grant. On May 8th, 2023, staff sent out information to 113 eligible property owners, notifying them of the grant program. 12 applications were received, totaling $54,490 in requested funds, so a little over twice as much. Projects range from new windows to brickwork to accessibility improvements. Attached is a spreadsheet outlining the staff's recommendation and the Historic Preservation Commission's recommendation that they decided on at their June 27th, 2023 meeting. The commission gave priority to historically appropriate renovations and did not consider requests such as ADA compliance and non-street side facade repairs. Such requests are eligible for the grant request, and therefore staff did take them into consideration when considering the amounts. I will admit staff also looked into how much money the property owners are utilizing of their own. Is it solely grant funded, or have they dedicated a significant amount of their own funding? Also, the visual impact, and if the property has been a nuisance property in the past that is in dire need of some rehabbing. So planning staff and Historic Preservation Commission act as a recommending body to the City Council for this program. The City Council may alter the amount of funding or approve only a portion of the applications as it sees fit. However, staff recommends the City Council motions to approve the following grant awards for a total of $26,462. For 515 South State Street, $3,500. 110 East Lincoln, $3,500. 126 to 128 North State Street, 3,000. 116 to 118 North State Street, 2,500. 124 North State Street, 3,500. 220 West Locust Street, 0. 409 South State Street, 3,000. 519 South Main Street, 0. 611 South State Street, 0. 207 South State Street, 2,500. 107 West First Street, 3,500. And 209 South State Street, 1,462. That's the oddball number just because obviously we had $462 to give away, so.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Flurry. So in your packet here, it says 642, but the motion, at least mine does, but the motion is 462, 26,462. Okay, that's fine. Okay, just so we are all in agreement, we have a motion on the floor then. Open it up, Alderman Snow.
So just to let everybody know, I did attend the bulk of that meeting when they were going through it, and they did pay a lot of attention to who they were giving what as far as the legitimate concerns of the historic preservation as far as their purview.
I think it's also fair to point out that some of the individuals who had applied, who did not receive any funding, had in the past received funding. Gina, correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct. 519 South Main Street. Historic Preservation felt that two sides of that building is not visible from the street. And also they did receive a significant portion. So you're eligible to apply for the grant every 3 years. So 3 years ago, they did receive a significant grant from the city. So, and staff agreed, since we have so much requested and limited funds, to try to give it to those that had not received funding in the past. That is also a reason why for Taft Insurance, their requested amount was reduced because they did receive some grant money in the past as well. Not as much as South Main, but that is one of the reasons why staff felt comfortable reducing their amount.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, any comments? Alderwoman Frank.
Thank you, Mayor. So on 110 East Lincoln, which is Mark's Auto Service, it says lack of historical significance, that they are not recommending any funds, but yet it says amount next to it.
So that column is Historic Preservation's Commission recommendation. So Historic Preservation recommended no because it's not a historically significant building. Obviously, they have their set of priorities to review it on. And then, so that last column is staff's recommendation. So I'm recommending that they receive 3,500. So that's why you got the two on there.
Okay.
And I think part of that is because, correct me if I'm wrong, they had made a significant investment already, correct?
Correct, although 110 East Lincoln is not a historically significant structure and it's on Lincoln and not State Street, the new owner has invested a significant amount of their own financing in doing work already and has much more planned after this as well.
Okay, thank you. Alderwoman Freeman?
Thank you, Mayor. So Gina, I don't have my glasses. 611 South State was denied because the application is missing estimates and description of the work. But when I looked at their application and then I looked at 209 South State, they looked identical. That application is also missing estimates. And all they had is pictures. I mean, all they have is pictures, just like the other one, but yet they were awarded the 1462. So I'm a little confused as to why one was actually like eliminated because of an incomplete application, where the other one was awarded.
Yep, and I was torn on that one. So 611 South State Street had an application that didn't even have half the questions answered on it and pictures, with no description of are the pictures representing stuff that's getting fixed, what is getting fixed in those pictures, no narrative whatsoever or estimates for the 209 South State Street. I believe there was a narrative or a writing or something should be attached to that explaining what was being done. There was just no estimates attached because they are doing the work themselves. And they had received a grant previously, them and Amoka Haiti both received grants previously, but because of various issues, were not able to follow through on the project. So part of it was that work was approved and he just didn't get it done in time. But, hold on, let me. But yeah, so it was a toss-up, but I do know for a fact that the one is doing the work themselves. So the invoice would have been questionable, and the fact that they had received a grant previously, but by all means, I was torn. I hate telling people no, so I was torn to begin with. But if the council feels that it's an incomplete application and should be treated the same, I would completely understand.
Okay, and then, I also, was questioning these, there are three, 126 to 128 North State, 116 to 118 North State, and then 124 North State. And those are all, insurance is not covering the total cost, and that is, from the tornado. Are these, it looks like the amounts are significantly more than whatever deductible they would have had, so were they not aware that there were state funds for the tornado disaster procured by Governor Pritzker that they could have applied for?
I don't know if private property, I'll let the mayor speak on behalf of that funding. I do know there are issues with the insurance companies, are all about the same. And same with the property on Lincoln Avenue. For instance, in order to fix the roof, the parapet wall needs to get taken down, fix the roof, fix the brick, put the parapet wall back up. The insurance companies are saying the parapet wall is not structurally significant to the building, and therefore they will not pay the cost to remove it or put it back up. Well, obviously to our downtown, that's a very distinct visual part of the building. But to the insurance company, since it's not structurally part of the building, they are not paying for any of that stuff or paying for it to be replaced, or the cost of the removal. So that is the one of the many common issues that unfortunately the tornado damaged properties are receiving. I have multiple times mentioned them that they're also federally landmarked properties, National Registry properties, and they're eligible for some tax credits. I do know one of the properties is actually working with the state right now, that's why they're not an applicant, they went the tax credit route. And the Lincoln Avenue building is also going to be pursuing that route as well, because that also pays for interior upgrades to electrical, upgrades to plumbing, drywall. So they're going to take advantage of it to do some more than just the outside stuff. So yeah, and these are also where part of it is the time constraint. See, one takes a lot longer, and some are eager to get their buildings up and going and going for public use again. So, but I will let the mayor speak about the state funding.
Yeah, the state funding was, done through Boone County, because of cities obviously in Boone County. And any of the homeowners, or any of the business owners, homeowners, anybody who chose or had damages and chose, they could submit. And I know that Dan Zachard was the point of contact for the county with that. Most individuals did take advantage of that. Regarding whether or not these did, I don't know, but they certainly could have. And I would think, it was advertised, it was certainly put out by a lot of, I think by Dan, by IEMA, and that they could submit any cost that, any damages that they had, as the city did too.
Okay, thank you.
Continue.
Thank you. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was, there's two on here that they were awarded grants in the past but were not able to pursue their projects. So there's no penalty for that. I feel like if you're awarded this grant, it's obviously taking money away from somebody else in that same year, right? And then if you don't use it, it rolls into the next year, but those previous applicants aren't eligible because it's every 3 years. So that just concerns me that there isn't a penalty for that.
Yep, so, and that's one of the things that Historic Preservation did basically penalize them for. So yeah, there's two. There is the 209 South State Street and El Mulcahy, and the funding that they did not utilize did roll into the next year, and they were eligible to apply since they did not utilize the grant. I know at least with one of them, they couldn't get the windows in time, and then the cost of renovations by the time they were ready to do it was significantly higher, and they just decided to put on hold, reassess, and what they're requesting this year is somewhat different than the original request. They've taken certain situations and availability of products and stuff like that in mind when they applied this year. But technically, there's nothing in the grant guidelines that says if you don't follow through, you're penalized.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions regarding what you have in front of you here this evening? Motion. All right. All right, we have then a motion and a second for the planning staff recommends the city council motions to approve the following grant awards for a total amount of $26,462, and that includes what you have listed on your sheet. If there are no other questions, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. Okay, and Gina, we have an applicant that was on there that is the new brewery, microbrewery, right? And I had made this comment before, but I don't want any confusion. But her last name is the same. Their last name is the same as mine, but we're of no relation whatsoever. So I don't want anybody to get it confused or have anybody think that they know the mayor and therefore they were on the list. So it's no relation, no shirt tail. I wanted to make that clear. Thank you. Item 3, Public Works, unfinished business. We have none. Item 4, Public Works, new business. Item A, Public Works update. Director Anderson.
Thank you, Your Honor. The only thing I have for council tonight is we've been advised by IDOT that we no longer qualify for high-growth funds. It's been an annual payment received by the city. The last payment we received was about $48,000 that would go into our MFT account, and that was based on census results. We had less than a 5% population growth this past census, so we no longer qualify. Any questions?
Any question? Alderman Snow?
Brent, are your guys going around picking up branches right now from storm damage that occurred a week or two ago? Because I got a lot of people in my ward that have a lot of limbs out, and I was just curious.
We have been doing that. Yes, after that storm, we have been. If there's a property owner or resident that had branches come down in the storm, they haven't been picked up yet, call the Public Works office and we'll get it scheduled.
Okay, thank you. And item, if there are no other, I'm sorry, Alderwoman Freeman.
Thank you. Real quick, so how much money are we talking about that we lost?
So I said our last payment received was about $48,000. And we've gotten, it has ranged, I went back and looked historically, from 2016 to present, it ranged anywhere from 14,000 to the 48,000. So it all depended on the funding that was available for each budget year for the state and how much they allocated.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on, item B, 2023 MFT thermoplastic paving striping bid tabulation. Mr. Anderson?
Thank you, Your Honor. A memo in your packet. We received 4 bids for our thermoplastic pavement striping contract for this year. The low bid being from Countryman Incorporated, no relation to our building inspector whatsoever. I would recommend approval of the low bid from Countryman Incorporated in the amount of $43,954 for the 2023 MFT thermoplastic pavement striping project, subject to IDOT approval. This work will be paid for from MFT funds.
Okay, could I get a motion to that effect, please? Motion by Alderman Albertini. Thank you. And do we get a second? Second by Alderman Snow. Any questions regarding the motion on the floor? All right. Thank you for clarifying that. I didn't want Kip to have there be any misconception out there either on his part. So we have a motion on the floor. If there are no other questions, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. And moving along, item C, MFT 2023 MFT street overlays bid tabulation. Director Anderson.
In memo in your packet, we received 2 bids for this work this year. The engineer's estimate was $980,304.75. I would recommend approval of the low bid from Rock Road Companies in the amount of $949,860 for the 2023 MFT street overlay program, subject to IDOT approval. This work will be paid for from MFT funds.
Okay, could I have a motion to that effect, please? Motion by Alderman Fleury, thank you. And a second by Alderman Albertini. Thank you. Any questions regarding that? First, Alderman Fleury.
Thank you. Do you remember what company did it last year?
William Charles Construction, I believe.
Okay, and then historically, has that been different each year, or?
Yeah, historically, it's either been William Charles or Rock Road. For those that do not know, William Charles is out of the blacktop business now. They no longer do resurfacing. So Rock Road has acquired all of their assets.
Thank you.
Alderman Snow.
I was going to ask why there was only 2 bids, but the other is, does IDOT ever not approve?
Not since I've been here.
How long have you been here?
A long time.
Okay. Understand. Okay. Any other questions regarding that motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If there's any opposed? Okay, motion passed, thank you. And item D, the Highline Lift Station Pump Rail Replacement. Director Anderson?
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, memo in your packet. Our guardrails at the Highline Lift Station are broken and need to be replaced. We received 2 proposals to furnish and install new stainless steel pump guide rails. I would recommend approval of the proposal from Cerrone Piping for new guide rails at the Highline Lift Station in the amount of $4,344. This work will be paid for from Sewer Department line item 615-820-6005.
Okay, thank you, Brent. Could I get a motion to that effect, please? Motion by Alderman McGee, second by Alderman Albertini. Thank you. Any questions for Director Anderson regarding the motion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please say aye. Aye. If there's any opposed? Motion passed, thank you. And we have item E, wastewater treatment plant, wet well, vent line installation. Director Anderson.
A memo in your packet. In order to prevent airlocking, a vent line needs to be installed for each of the 4 raw wastewater pumps in the main equipment building wet well. We received 3 proposals to have that work done. I would recommend approval of the proposal from Helm Service to install 4 vent lines in the main equipment building wet well at the wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $4,793. This work will be paid for from sewer department line item 6158206010.
Okay, if I could get a motion to that effect, please. Motion by Alderwoman Mulhall, second by Alderman Albertini. Any questions, any comments regarding that motion on the floor? Alderwoman Graham-Kowski?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry. Because we awarded Cerrone the previous bid, did they give us a discount on this one?
No.
No, they, technically, they bid them as they get them, and they bid them according to the same standards everybody else bids them, and so, as an FYI. Good question, though. Okay, any other questions? Any comments? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the floor then to accept the proposal from Helm Service to install 4 vent lines in the main equipment, in the main equipment building, wet well at wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $47.93. This work will be paid for from the sewer department line item 61-5-820-6010. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passed, thank you. And item F, Director Anderson, wastewater treatment, final clarifier, repair, rehabilitation.
Thanks again, Your Honor. Memo in your packet, one of our 2 final clarifiers is not functioning properly, and repairs need to be made. Due to the age of some of the final clarifier components, the equipment may be beyond repair. Attached to the memo is a proposal from Baxter and Woodman to complete a condition report for both primary clarifiers to recommend repair and rehabilitation options and the corresponding cost estimates for those options. The proposal is not to exceed the amount of $12,000. They call it a condition report, but you can basically consider it as preliminary engineering. Once this report is submitted to us for review, then we'll be able to proceed right to the design portion of the project as far as to come up with those necessary repairs and/or rehabilitations. I would recommend approval of the engineering services work order from Baxter and Woodman in an amount not to exceed $12,000 to complete the final clarifier condition report at the wastewater treatment plant. This work will be paid for from line item 61-5-820-6190. And I can tell you some of the components in these clarifiers have been there since the late 60s.
Okay, could I get a motion to that effect, please? Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderwoman Mulhall. Thank you. Any questions regarding the motion? Alderwoman Freeman?
Thank you again, Mayor. So Director Anderson, on the back page, it's owner responsibilities. And the city shall, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How much is all that gonna cost us?
It's not gonna cost us anything basically because it's time, efforts that we will involve with during normal business hours with our workforce, so no direct expenses.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Director Anderson? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion on the floor. There are no other questions. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passed, thank you. And we have item G, lead service line inventory grant engineering proposal, Director Anderson.
Again, memo in your packet. IEPA is requiring all public water supplies to complete a lead service line inventory, and that inventory must be submitted to the IEPA by April 15th of 2024. We have been awarded a $50,000 grant from the IEPA to complete this inventory. The grant budget includes $28,000 for engineering services and $22,000 for inspection services. Attached to the memo is a proposal from Strand Associates for the engineering services required to complete the inventory at a cost not to exceed $21,700. I would therefore recommend approval of the proposal from Strand Associates in the amount not to exceed $21,700 for the lead service line inventory, and the work will be paid for from grant funds.
Okay, thank you. Could I get a motion to that effect, please? Motion by Alderman McGee, second by Alderman Albertini. Any questions regarding that motion on the floor? Alderman Snow?
So exactly how do they actually try to survey that, or what's the parameters of checking that?
It's going to be a lot of search for records, for historical data, both what we have, I call it in our archives and our file system, as well as trends in the area, surrounding areas, and work activity, construction starts. We know there's been some of the most recent ones, of course, is they're going to have probably as much, have a probability to have the lead content as the older structures, so that'll be researched as well. And then when we get down to it, we'll probably have to actually physically expose some of the services just to confirm or what's there and what's not there. So it's a lot of in-depth paperwork research on going over the old records of what we have.
And do we take water samples from residents, older homes, just to see if it shows up any traces?
We have done some of that already with what the requirements are through EPA for those reporting requirements that we have. I don't think this is going to come to that. It may, but I doubt it.
Okay, thank you. Alderwoman Frank?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Brent, when we did the Logan Avenue restoration, did we ever do any replacement of lead pipes on Logan Avenue?
Most of that work was done prior to actually the Logan Ave rehab. We had one, I believe, that was included as part of the project that we had not got to yet, that was identified as lead.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderwoman Freeman?
Thank you again, Mayor. So being how a lot of our infrastructure here is century old, we probably have some lead. So what happens when we find lead pipes?
Well, current legislation requires full service line, what they call full service line lead replacement, or at least the attempt to do that process, which takes it into the house, into the meter. Up until this recent legislation, cities would our responsibility by ordinance goes to the property line where the water shutoff is. So it's been past practice for us that anytime we would uncover lead, we'd automatically replace it to the water box, and we would quit there. So now in this, like I said, with this recent legislation, there's a process in place to try and attempt to at least get it into the house. So going forward, that's the process that we will have to follow. But up till this point, everything's been done from the water box out.
You know, that is a good point, that historically, we would stub it off at the property line, and they would bring both the water and sewer back to us. And unfortunately, whatever was popular centuries old or however old it is, we have to keep in mind that this is really like, it is an unfunded mandate. They're requiring the city to go ahead and search for these or locate them, and then it's almost up to the city, unless they come up with some legislation that is going to fund that. It is unfunded, is my understanding. Is that correct, Director?
Well, and that's going to hopefully be one of the results of doing this inventory and having this information and supply it to the state. Is Congress has fortunately increased funding to water and sewer projects, partly due to these recent legislation for lead service line replacements. So there potentially could be grant money out there, and having this inventory completed, and that information and the data that we are able to provide us, or be provided to us, will help us perhaps receive some grant funds, or try to go out and get some grant funds to complete some of this lead service line replacements.
Thank you. Alderman Snow?
So, but just arbitrary throw a number. So if you came across 500 houses in the past that had lead, and you guys replaced it from the main to the shutoff, do those residents get pinged onto this report, and would the homeowner have been notified first off that was occurring, and that they should look at replacing their portion of the piping? And then second of all, will we wind up ultimately having to replace those portions from those shutoffs to the meter, being that roughly, I'm just throwing a number, 500 houses need to be done that we know of right off the bat.
That is yet to be determined. We'll see where it goes when we get this inventory, see how many is actually out there, what we think is out there, as opposed to what's actually out there. That could very well happen, that they have to go through that process. But we're gonna find that out once we get this study completed and see where that takes us.
And would we have notified the homeowner that this had occurred years ago when?
Not years ago was not required, no.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? Sorry, oh, Alderman Albertini, I didn't see over there on my left.
I've been hiding. I'm trying to keep it brief. I have a quick question, bring it to my understanding. We'll be replacing up to the water box, and now with the new process, we'll replace from the water box to the meter. Would there be lead lines after the meter to the homes?
Well, that's part of my concern with, because it's, I think, a fairly well-known fact that there's a lot more lead content in all the appurtenances to your lines, not the line themselves, not only the line themselves, but your bends, your 45s, your 90s, those tend to have a more lead content. So yes, just by taking it to the meter, you could have all the lead in the house after the meter. That's still an issue. So we have to have a licensed plumber because it's on private property. Once you get from the water box, it's basically at the property line. So as soon as we go on private property, we don't have the staff manpower to be able to take care of that. We would have to hire a contractor, have a licensed plumber to actually be able to do that work. And as we know, your service could go through the driveway, it could go through, there's all kinds of things on the outside that you're gonna have to get into. So there's a whole process to go through as far as notifying the property owners what they can do, what they can't do. They can tell us no, and if they do that, then there's steps then that the city has to do, the follow-up to basically conclude that address. But all of that we'll have further discussion on once this inventory is done and submitted.
Okay, I have one other question. These houses that have the lead lines going to their homes, if they've had reconstruction done to their homes interiorly, all new piping and stuff like that, would all of this, had they not known they had lead pipes, would they be tainted from the existing lead pipes that were there? And would they have to retreat their pipes or change their pipes again? Or is this not something that could be transferable to the new construction pipes?
Depending on what the new construction was, I would doubt it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you. Alderwoman Freeman?
Thank you. This question is for Director Countryman. So back in the day, we used all those metal pipes for water and stuff. Are the codes now that they have to be copper or PVC?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Alderwoman Mohawk?
So just to recap, this is all going to be decided by statute or legislation that's happening now?
That's correct. It's what the EPA has put into place. This is our first response for that legislation to come up with this, and then we have to once we have this in place, and then there's the process that will be developed once that's done.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully there'll be some grant assistance behind this if based upon what not only we find out, but everybody else, and they get a big picture snapshot. So, okay, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, there's a motion on the floor then to recommend approval of the proposal from Strand Associates in the amount not to exceed $21,700 for the lead service line inventory. This work will be paid for from grant funds for just this investigation. So if there are no other questions, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposed, motion passed. Thank you. Thank you, Brent. Appreciate it. Item 5, other, we have the resolution of the support for community block grant. Ms. Hanson?
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, an F1 tornado made its way through the city of Belvedere on March 31st, causing significant damage to businesses and residences. The following day, Governor Pritzker issued a disaster proclamation unlocking access to federal funds for the city's cleanup efforts as part of a community development block grant for the following: debris removal, clearance of streets and similar activities, temporary or permanent street repair that does not alter environmental conditions and is limited to protection, repair, or restoration activities necessary only to control or arrest the effects of the disaster, and activity delivery for required documentation and compliance. The city plans to apply for funds to cover the following expenses: contracted services, including but not limited to emergency cleanup and fencing placement on State Street and tree removal, overtime pay for Public Works employees, and reimbursement for city-owned equipment used for cleanup. The above, along with the fee charged by Fairgram to assist with the city's submission, totals $120,766.59. Application guidelines require use of an experienced environmental specialist with community development block grant experience. At the committee of the whole meeting on this committee of the whole meeting, a resolution will be introduced allowing the city to apply for the grant and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute all necessary documentation. The resolution will come back at the July 17th full council meeting for consideration, and a public hearing on the matter will be held on the 17th as well.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hanson. So with that being said, motion to approve a resolution allowing the city to apply for the grant and authorizing the mayor and the city clerk to execute all necessary documentation. Motion by Alderman Snow, thank you. And a second, please. Thank you. Motion second, seconded by Alderman Mohall, thank you.
Question.
Alderman Snow?
So not necessarily related to that exactly, but so where do we stand with the building that was behind the Ace building and the equipment that was in it that got destroyed? Where does that all fall? Or how is that working with our insurance or whatever? I'm just curious.
It's going through the insurance process. All the paperwork has been submitted to them, and they're still during the process of review.
All right, is there any other questions? Alderwoman Freeman?
Thank you again, Mayor. So Director Hanson, do you think will cover everything, all the losses for the city?
So what this does is reimburse what we've already paid out for our equipment use, the overtime for the Public Works, and our contracted services, like when the fencing went up on State Street. So it covers, it's just a reimbursement of the fees we've already paid.
Okay, so then will there be additional grant money for our losses?
This is all that we've been made aware of.
Okay, so overtime for Public Works, but what about police and fire that night?
I don't think I will check, but I don't think it covers that because it's the clearing of the debris and things like that. So it's everything related to that.
Okay, thank you.
I can certainly check and see if that can be part of it, but not to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you. Any other questions? And we'll get an answer for that and get back to the council next week. Or before. All right, if there are no other questions, we have the motion on the floor. All those in favor of the resolution, in support of the resolution for the community block grant, please say aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposed, motion passed. Thank you. And we have, thank you, Ms. Hanson. And we have item B, block party request for 1404 Whitney Boulevard. In your packet this evening, you have that request. And in addition, there would be a motion, or there would be a request that East 7th Street to be closed between Whitney Boulevard and South Main Street. And I guess that would be a part of the approval for this, just so that we understand exactly where East 7th is going to be closed from. And that is, again, between Whitney Boulevard and South Main Street. If I could get a motion to approve that, the block party request, motion by Alderman Fleury, second, please. Second by Alderman Snow. Any questions or comments regarding the motion on the floor? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor to approve the block party request with the parameters for road closure at East 7th between Whitney and Boulevard and South Main Street, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passed, thank you. And lastly, item C, in your packet, I had put a letter to the council asking for a formal appointment from the city council. I'm going to request Mr. Banks's name. He is already on the Community Complex Committee, Building Complex Committee, and he has an interest. He would like to have a reappointment, and so I would entertain a motion to appoint the appointment of Don Banks to the Community Building Complex Committee. Motion by Alderwoman Frank, second by Alderman Albertini. Any questions? Alderwoman Freeman?
Thank you. One last time, Mayor. So what is the Community Building Complex Committee, and what relationship do they have with the city?
What's my understanding is the city has a food and beverage tax, and that we have to have, the city has to have somebody that represents, and always has had since the establishment of the Community Building Complex Committee, as a representative. I assume that that's part of it. The city attorney probably will have something to say, but.
It is actually, I was going to pull up on Westlaw real quick, but I can give you background. Fred Burton actually worked on this before he became mayor. This was his first foray really in government life. And they managed to get special legislation passed in Springfield, creating the Community Building Complex Committee. They are a separate unit of government. Their board is made up of appointed members from the county, from the city, and other sources. So by statute, we're required to appoint people to their board. And that is true that they receive a food and beverage tax for their funding through that legislation. But they're actually a separate governmental unit.
Okay.
Curiosity, and do we know how many people represent the city, or just one?
If you give me
I don't know who the other individual is. Tell you the truth, I know that Mr. Banks made me aware that that his appointment was coming to an end at Heritage Days, and he's been a wonderful representative. He takes a interest in everything within the community, and I thought he was a good choice. But yeah, as far as the other one,
I think it's Kim Cooley.
oh, Kim Cooley.
Let's
Kim Cooley.
see.
I believe she's a realtor.
Yeah, I do know Kim. Yes.
Members of the committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah.
I believe.
Okay.
So the chairman of the Boone County Board, with the advice and consent of the county board, appoints 2 members. The mayor of the city of Belvedere, with the advice and consent of the city council, appoints 2 members. The Belvedere Township Supervisor, with the advice and consent of his board, appoints 1 member. The Board of Trustees of all townships within Boone County, except for Belvedere Township, collectively appoint a member. And then there's some more members that are appointed after consultation with, quote, community organizations. District 100 gets to appoint 1 member, as does District 200 as well. So it really is pretty much everybody appoints somebody to represent the community on that committee.
Fine? Okay. All right, thank you. So without any other questions, hearing none, we have the appointment of Don Banks to the Community Building Complex Committee. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposed? Okay, motion passed. Thank you for that. Also, just as a reminder, please, if I could echo our finance director's sentiment regarding the fraud risk assessment inquiry, if you would be so kind and helpful to have those filled out, it will save us any follow-up later. So I would appreciate it. That's all we have. Motion to adjourn, please. Motion by Alderman Albertini, second by Alderwoman Frank. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposed? Okay, thank you, everybody. For the record, we adjourned at 6:56 PM. Thank you and have a good evening.